so many employers offer tremendous benefits, but the biggest issue is that employees don't know about them. But if the employee doesn't know what Overalls does and how they can help them, why are you paying for that benefit, right?
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
We are back. We are back here at Transform. We're on the final couple of interviews here. So my man, John Cove over here, we're just talking about like the real life stuff. We're talking about, like I said, we have families, we have kids at home, but we do this, we do what we got to do. How do you, like, you know, kind of, we're going to miss stuff. It's hard. Like, how do you, let's have some dad talk here for a minute.
Yeah, no, it is. And, you know, I think it's just about finding that balance. And I think making sure you're actually being present for the moments you are physically present at home. You know, like I don't know about you, but Saturday, right before I came out here, Sunday morning was spent all day with the kids, right? It was, you know, being there and getting that time in and, you know.
The operative word you said is presence, right? It's like when you're there, you're there. Don't be at baseball practice on the phone. Don't just be sitting there. And one of the things I did this year is I signed up to be an assistant coach in my kids' baseball league because I was there anyway. And I love baseball. And now I could be even more present there. Listen, you do what you got to do. And thank God for FaceTime.
Yeah.
FaceTime might be one of the greatest modern inventions to keep us engaged with our family, right?
Agreed. You know, I was up at 4 a.m. today to say hello to my kids before they went to school. And as soon as we're done here, I'm going to FaceTime them before they go to bed. So
and say goodnight.
And speaking of T-ball, I'm going into my second year of coaching my son's T-ball team. So we're kicking off practice next week and we're diving back into it.
It's great. Like, you know, it's like we take it for granted. I grew up playing baseball, Lily. I'm sure you did too. Like, it's hard to hit a baseball. And it gets harder for the kids now, I'm finding, with the kid pitch from coach pitch. That's where it's getting a little bit interesting for them to not be scared of the other kids throwing the ball because they're going to get hit.
Yeah, we've got one more year of T-ball before we move up to coach pitch. And then we'll see. You know, I think he's taken to T-ball, he's taken to soccer, and we'll ultimately see, you know, where it leads him.
We shall see where it goes. So let's talk shop here. Tell us, who do you work for and what do you do there?
Yeah, so I'm a vice president with the Alterity Group. And I think the best way to describe what we do is we are a third-party advisor to typically large to jumbo employers on all of their benefit and HR technology-related needs. So think about your benefit administration platforms, your HRIS and payroll platforms, your 401k record keeper, your 401k investment advisor. We help employers make sure, right, that they are using the best providers for them in the space and ultimately maximizing those vendor relationships because Ben Admin and HRIS in particular are typically the most expensive HR technology systems that a company is going to use. And our job is to be that independent third-party advisor. You know, to help them source and make sure that they're using the right vendors for their varying needs.
All right, so let's talk shop here. And I love this conversation with you because you sit at this intersection of trying to be, impartial, trying to be more consultative, obviously, more customizable for understanding each one of those. Yep. Where do you start when evaluating if a company has a competitive and cost-effective, right? It's a balance, benefit package for their current employees and in their recruitment outreach?
Yeah, so I think the first thing we do is make sure that we've got a good sense of who our clients are and ultimately what their objectives are, right? Because every client's need is different, right? The needs of a blue collar heavy company are very different than, say, a financial institution. And we do work with many financial institutions as well. Understanding what they're trying to do. Are they trying to retain folks or are they trying to be more competitive in the market and bring folks in? And that's where the technology that they're using really comes into play, right? So when you do go out and you are recruiting an employee, how are you making sure that they've got a good sense of what that total rewards package is going to look like, right? Because, you know, that total rewards is much more than just your compensation, right? It's your benefits, it's your stock plan, it's your equity
how much you're
plan.
Contributing to health insurance.
Exactly.
What
and how easy is that company making it for them to get a good sense of what that package looks like? And that's where we can come in and really help make sure that the technology that they're using is helping both, you know, their current and existing folks, but also prospective new employees as well.
Okay. How do you gauge utilization? How do you drive? Let's talk about utilization. How do you drive utilization, awareness within a company where it might be underutilized?
Yeah, I think, if you were to ask most benefit professionals, and, up until last summer, I was a 20-year in-house benefits and payroll and HRIS leader. So many employers offer tremendous benefits, but the biggest issue is that employees don't know about them.
They don't know about them.
They
Exactly.
don't. So, it's great to, be able to, for example, we're sitting at the overalls booth right now. It's great to offer overalls, but if the employee doesn't know what overalls does and how they can help them, why are you paying for that benefit, right? So it's making sure that you have that engagement platform. And, I'll go a step further in calling it a navigator, right? To make sure, right, that if an employee has a need, that you have the technology in place to guide them exactly where they need to go at that exact right moment in time.
Interesting. How do you work with companies to really measure the ROI of offering a certain benefit that might be above and beyond table stakes type of investment?
Yeah, every vendor is going to have their own ROI methodologies, right? Which is great, and you do rely on that. But I've sort of taken a different approach where sometimes the numbers might not mean as much as just the emotional component of offering a benefit, right? Like, for example, like I'll just talk about GLP-1s quickly, right? So all the data says, hey, it's going to drive up your costs in the short term, and you might not see any benefits for that in 3 years, and that employee might not work for you in 3 years, right? But let's just take a step back, right? If you can help someone lose 30, 40, 50 pounds, and God knows I could,
more
they're
energy,
going to feel better. The pain on their joints are going to be
productive.
less. Their blood pressure should go down. The cholesterol should go down, right? So while it might spike, the ROI will tell you it might not be there in the short term, but sometimes I think we just need to take a step back and just, take a bigger picture view and realize that even if the dollars might not be there in that moment, it is still helping people.
Well, I absolutely love that one. And how do companies manage it internally from like a question standpoint? What are some of those best practices you're seeing, and like how companies are fielding all these, like, how do I use this? How do I have that?
Yeah, I think we have seen an increase in a number of our clients who are interested in what we call sort of healthcare navigation companies, right? So having that one-stop shop where someone can go in plain English, right, and say, hey, my knee hurts, what should I do, right? And maybe that company has Hinge or Sword, right, for musculoskeletal conditions, and can direct them to that in real time, right? There's also sort of redirection in terms of site of care, right? So,
that's an interesting.
If you go on and say, hey, I have an ear infection, right? We don't want you going to the emergency room for an ear infection, right?
Right. There's another way to do it.
Exactly. You can go to urgent care. You can go to telemedicine, right? And get that prescription called in at a much less expensive price, both for the employer, right? Especially in a fully insured environment, but also it's going to save, typically ER copays are more expensive than urgent care copays and PCP copays.
So it's an education piece.
It is. It's education and giving them that trusted real-time answer, right? It needs to be quick.
Right. You can't be like, let me get back to you in 2 days.
Exactly. And
I have something wrong. I need to use it. I'm going to go to the emergency room if you don't tell me any other way to do it.
100%. And right. And you got to find that balance, right? Because if somebody feels that they need to go to the emergency room, go to the emergency room.
Right. We're not telling you not to go.
Exactly.
We're not telling you not to go.
Yeah, none of these are ever, a substitute for medical care, right? It's guidance, it's navigation, right? So do what you need to do, right, for you and your family at that point in time. But, it's very important that advice, right, be there when you need it in real time and not having to wait to get somebody on the phone to give you that.
What if your employees had one central hub to handle real life? Meet Overalls, a smarter way to support your team, combining expert life concierges with AI to solve everyday challenges across healthcare, caregiving, benefits, insurance, finances, life administration, and more. From start to finish, Overall handles all of the details, using existing benefits where they fit and filling the gaps where they don't. So employees save time, reduce stress, and stay focused at work, while employers boost engagement to get more value from their benefits. Overalls was just named to Fast Company's 2026 list of the world's most innovative companies, ranking number 7 in workplace category and earning a spot on the Small and Mighty list. Founded in 2021 and based in New York, Overalls is redefining how work supports life, helping employees from Reddit, Patreon, Beatbox, and more cross pesky to-dos off their list every day. Find out more at getoveralls.com. Thanks.
What do you see some best practices company out there that are talking about, and how do they position their benefits in their candidate employee attraction process?
Yeah, I think back in my prior life, we made sure that, offer letters, right? Obviously, it's going to reflect your your base salary, your on target earnings, but we really sort of started to draw out much more information about the benefits that get offered, right? So obviously, everybody's going to offer medical, dental, vision, right? Table stakes. But if you are offering some unique benefits, right? Getting that right out in front. In those, recruitment materials and making sure that you're calling it out. I think we had seen for a long time that employers were wary of their benefit offerings being out there in the public.
You mean they kept it more closed? Like, what was the reason behind that? Like, it's competitive?
Yeah, I think some thought it might be a competitive advantage to sort of keep close to the vest. But now I think we're seeing that change a little bit, where now I think there's more information out there in the open than ever. And that differentiation off the top, right? Somebody comes in knowing what they're going to get, right? Particularly around some of these, I wish there was a better word than ancillary benefits, but, these lifestyle support benefits. And I think as employers, right, have started asking more of employees than ever before, right? And I think employers are starting to return that favor and provide more of those lifestyle enhancement benefits than they have before, and they want to get credit for that, and they should, with the money that they're spending on those.
If you don't mind me sharing, what's one benefit in this job or a past job that you're glad you took advantage of?
Yeah, so I think one. Do you want me to give the exact name of the company? Or?
No, just share what you feel like sharing.
Yeah, so there was a caregiving support benefit that I offered at a prior company. We had a family member who was going through a challenging time, had a terminal diagnosis. And my previous company, we offered that caregiving support benefit that my mom was able to take advantage of to get help with will preparation, power of attorney, advanced directives, and, to give my mom and let her be able to take advantage of that, right? And ultimately, right, it was my employee benefit that she was able to access. But ultimately, it saved me time and effort, because if my mom hadn't been able to do that on her own, I would have been doing it for her. And I think that those benefits, right, that, might have not been thought of before as being incredibly valuable, I think are, look, we're in this sandwich generation, right? A lot of us are taking care of elderly parents and also elderly children, right? And I think the companies that are providing those benefits are really standing out more than they have in the past.
First of all, thank you for sharing them. But based on what you're saying here, my wheels are spinning in my head that why aren't companies doing more case studies around that? Why aren't they using that as an opportunity to share? And I bet you there's a lot of employees where you're not sharing anything. We all have elderly relatives and sick relatives. Hey, my name's John. I work in this company. I just want to share how I took advantage of something that we have here. We need to start encouraging that.
Yeah, 100%. And, in my former life, right, I ran annual enrollment processes for 19 years, right? And whenever I did an open enrollment presentation at my past companies, I gave real life examples about I or others had used those benefits, right? So, I'll use another example of something like family planning and family forming and family support benefits, right? But not only, right, to focus on, fertility treatment and family forming, but how do you support parents of new children, right? So
many ways.
Again, at a former employer, we had a great benefit that allowed for on-demand telemedicine visits with pediatricians, right? So
such a benefit. If I didn't have to leave the house to get some amoxicillin for that earache.
Yeah, I have a son, unfortunately, who's become a little prone to croup, right? So I'll never forget the first time he woke up at 5 months old with that barking seal-like cough, right?
What that's alarming, concerning, and weird. What's happening with that cough, buddy?
And instead of going to Children's National in downtown Washington, D.C., we were able to talk to a provider, 2 a.m., listen to my son, and said, you know what? I don't think he's going to need a steroid. Take him out on your balcony, get him some cold air, bring him inside, give him the steam. And it saved us a trip to the emergency room. And by morning,
you were able
it was fine.
That's absolutely amazing. John, I want to thank you so much for hanging with us. Leave us some words of optimism, specifically in the benefit space. What's something that's really getting you excited, moving in a positive direction that you're happy to see?
Yeah, I think you're probably hearing it throughout, but I think just the use of AI that is
How are they
really,
doing in your space?
yeah, taking over the industry. I think what we're seeing in particular is what we call claims-based personalization is something that's becoming more common. So I would say, years ago, employers were very weary of the big brother component, right?
Right. Like I'm using my benefit. Who's watching? How's that going to affect my performance?
Exactly. But now, for example, right, there are a lot of providers out there today who are mining claims data, right? So let's say you haven't had your annual physical, right? Now, some places might look at that and say, oh, well, that means that they haven't incurred any healthcare expenses. That's great. We didn't pay anything.
The good ones are the ones that care about their
right.
employees.
And I look at the alternative and say, well, the best money you can spend are those preventative care dollars, right? So if we can nudge that employee to get their annual physical, to get their colonoscopy, to get their mammogram, and remind them that it's available in most cases free of charge, right? As long as it's in network, I think those are the real advancements that are going to actually hopefully start to move the needle on healthcare costs by catching things early. Ultimately, right, it benefits the employee by being healthier, catching things early, and also benefits the employer, right, because it's a lot cheaper to treat things in an early stage than it is as
an ounce of prevention,
exactly.
As they say. John Cove, thank you so much for joining us. Where can folks find you? Where can they connect? Where can they learn more?
Thanks, Adam. Again, John Cove from the Alterity Group, alteritigroup.com or LinkedIn, John Cove.
John Cove in the house. Enjoy the rest of your conference. Hope you get back in time for T-ball and other sort of activities.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the Podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.